Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the LiftAffect podcast. I am your host, Matt McNeil, founder, clinical director, and director of human performance at LiftAffect, where we assist professional pilots with maintaining better mental health and optimizing their mental skills. The goal of this podcast is simple: to help pilots and other high liability professionals and disciplines come out of the shadows to discover how we can live better lives personally and professionally. Join us each episode as we discuss various topics ranging from mental health, mental skills and performance, to business, entrepreneurship, and a few other surprises along the way.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the LiftAffect podcast. I'm Karl Keller, and I'm here with Matt McNeil, the man, as always. How are you doing, buddy?
I'm awesome.
Well,
this week was a good week. This week was a really good week.
How so?
I'll tell you, but how are you doing?
I am here to just be at your service.
To serve.
To serve.
You were going there. One of the things that made this week good was, surprisingly, it was good, even though my daughter had stomach flu, which was not good at 2:00 in the morning. 3 bed changes, four outfit changes over the course of 6 hours. It was crazy, man. It was insane. It was like, just get it in the bucket, please. Just get it in the bucket. She finally started to get it in the bucket after it was like cooled down. I'm like, well, okay. It was like, 1 hour of sleep. Sleep was not good. And when I don't get good sleep, I am a wreck. Like that is like my foundation is sleep. But what was cool about this week is I had a couple cool things. I had some good meetings. I got a chance to spend time with one of the peer support programs for an airline. That's just an awesome support program. And, the peers were cool. It was fun. It was just a good, disruption it was a happy disruption from my normal routine, was just to get to spend time with these folks. And we got to rap and talk about ways of engaging and, some of their obstacles that they're running into. And we kind of brainstormed. So it was just really fun. I just enjoyed that, and enjoyed the peeps. They're really awesome, amazing people that are just giving of their time and of themselves to try to help their fellow colleagues, which is really cool. So that was good. That was fun. That's how my week's been. How's your week been? How's the chaos?
Uncontrolled as usual.
Yeah. How many sick kids this week?
Yeah. Well, actually, this week, they're all in school right now, and life is good.
Knock on wood, man.
But I guess there's one other thing to celebrate that in a big picture way that has been a while in the coming, and it got off the ground last week, and it's on its way. And without me saying it, I'd like you to say.
Say it, man. No, go.
No. Well, this is your baby.
I think we rotated. We did. V1 project. We launched the V1 project this week, which was a massive milestone, and it was awesome. It was I thought it was. What did you think? I mean, it's the first cohort. It's kind of it was, folks that for the first cohort, we really selected people that have. I think everybody in that cohort has done a mental skills training workshop, has participated in that. A lot of people in there have done a lot of extensive self-development in their lifetime. They've got the repertoire of this. And so the purpose of the first cohort was, here's the structure, let's design this together as a community. And it was a brainstorm, and some of the ideas were just blew me away. I was like, oh my God, you guys are so amazing. Yeah, so smart.
It's
such
already
good
kind
ideas.
It's already kind of affecting the path that the V1 project's going to take.
Yep.
And there's such a wide. What's really good about this is there is a wide range of experience. There's young, there's in my case not so young, Um,
You're in the
there's
middle, dude. You're in the
yeah,
middle.
oh, there's people that come from multiple backgrounds: corporate,
Yep.
civilian,
Yep.
military.
Yep.
Some that have had other exposures to supports
Yep.
groups. Everything. It's a good group to.
Yeah, Helo guys. I got a test pilot that's a test
Yeah.
pilot for a Helo man. I mean, just such a diverse like background of aviation experience, but this very common thread of being pilots and caring about what we do and caring about our community and understanding that there's a lack of resource for us. And so we're taking charge, man. V1 is different than LiftAffect. LiftAffect is a practice that's, that's what that is. V1 is a community. There's self-development, there's structure that we're certainly creating, but it's very user generated. I mean, this is the community that we're building. So
from the very first session,
yeah,
there's a lot of, this is going to help guide in a way, or help you fine tune the concept and create a really good curriculum.
Yep.
And help for everybody. So
yeah,
I just feel like that's something that we kind of, it's been a while coming, and people have been asking. It's going to be a little bit of a delay between now and the next one, because we're going to start making sure the path is is fine tuned, but it's on its way, and soon there'll be more opportunities for people to become a part of it. And I think they're going to really, really like it if based on what we're seeing just off this first one.
Yep.
Kudos.
Yep. And I see a lot of facilitators in there too that are gonna, so yeah, it's just I'm psyched. I'm really this is the future. I think it's a huge part of the future of what we're trying to do, and the ideas people had were just like amazing.
There was a lot of introspection and a lot of very I actually thought for having it presented to them on the fly, there was a lot of very well thought out and conceived ideas that really I can only imagine what the next session is going to bring after people have had time to chew on those different thoughts that were out there, because I thought this was going to be more of a meet and greet for the first one, and it got into the meat immediately. So all I can tell you for all those listeners out there, that when the opportunity presents itself, I think you're going to be floored and amazed at the content and the interaction of this community, because it's not going to be just your group. It's going to be
not even close.
There's going to be everybody at times, basically. So you're going to get the best of your own group, which you'll know the best, and everyone else. It's just this is the start of something really, really good. And like I said, kudos to you for the thought, the dream, and now the actual reality of it.
I appreciate it. I'm really excited for it. So it's good. So we rotated, man. I think we got the mains off the runway.
Yeah.
It's going. We're going. There's no stopping now. It's like it's game on.
Well, I think I've done enough of stroking your.
All right. Yeah. Enough of that. Too much ice cream, man. Too much ice cream.
That was all right, baby. It's kind of interesting. You, in your little intro of how your week was, kind of touched on something that was sent in by one of our listeners, and it was about sleep and the importance of it, and what are some tools, tips, techniques to help get better sleep, because we all know what the effects and the impacts of lack of sleep are, and that is something that we all get affected with, everybody, but the aviation community in particular, especially for people that are flying long haul or going doing a day flying and then having to transition on a relatively short cycle to go to an all-nighter type thing. It impacts for sleeping. So that was really the question was, hey, what is the what are some important tools, techniques I can use to help combat that disruption?
Yeah. I'll tell you what sleep is when we're talking about when people come to LiftAffect, very often the sleep was what put the nail in the coffin, if you will. They were managing their stress, or not managing, but kind of sweeping things under the rug, and being able to do that. And everything was like, it was kind of a house of cards, but where the card got pulled out from the base was when the sleep went. because when sleep goes, if you're not sleeping, you are going to, we call it, there's a term, psychological decompensation. It kind of means the wheels come off. And that is the number one factor of the wheels coming off for pilots, is this, the sleep goes, and it goes downhill very quickly. And once you kind of get on, it's like being on the backside of the power curve. If you get on the backside of the power curve, you are now, you're going to have to take a huge amount of thrust to depending on how far back you get.
And sometimes all the thrust is still not enough.
It's not enough. It's Air France, right? You cannot add enough power, and you cannot overcome it. Can't break it. And that is sleep. And so I will tell you, I've learned, I mean, my biggest struggles I've had in my life was sleep was a huge contributor, or lack of, or poor sleep was a huge contributor. So sleep for me is the most important priority in my life, is sleep. Because when I don't sleep, I am a different human being. And I used to pride myself on not getting enough sleep, and I could do it. And as I got older, I'm in my, late 40s now. And as soon as I hit 40, it was like I couldn't do it anymore. And when it would get disrupted, and I was starting to get on the backside of the power curve, things would go to hell in a handbasket fast. And I see that in our practice clinically. The sleep goes, and guys get into, and gals get into really bad places, really bad, like even sometimes requiring hospitalization. So
just a quick question.
Sleep is huge.
As people have gotten older, and with your cross section of clientele, have you found that as they get older, that period where they where it impacts them gets shorter, stays about the same? In other words, their ability to deal with the lack of sleep, does it get? Do you think
it gets worse? Because one is, as we get older, we sleep less. We have more sleep problems as we get older, just biologically, because and our resilience is less. And so we don't have the, when you're in college, you pull all-nighters and you're fine. It's like you can do it and still go out and drink that night. At least that's what we did. It was like, go home, take a nap. Yeah, coffee, right?
Yeah, that's right.
That's what I'm talking about. But but as you get older, like you don't have the tolerance, the resilience, you don't have the stamina to be able to power through that. And when you can go look at all the statistics, and there's the best book on sleep ever written is called Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker. He's a researcher at I think UC Berkeley, runs a big sleep lab, and he's wrote kind of the most comprehensive, approachable book on sleep. Not sleeping is incredibly impairing. It's like worse than being drunk in some respects. So it's, from a flight perspective and a performance perspective, it's bad. It's not good. It's no bueno when you're not sleeping. And there's lots of accidents that we can go back and look at where sleep was a huge factor. When you're sleeping, you can't make good decisions.
So here we are. We're there. We're on that backside of the power curve.
Right.
What tools, techniques do you feel like would help someone, get on the right side of it before they reach the point where full thrust is still not enough?
Yes. One is be aware of what gets in your way of a good night's sleep. Everybody's got their own thing. There are some well-known infiltrators of sleep, alcohol being primary. Yes, alcohol helps you fall asleep, but it's paradoxical. It helps you fall asleep, but then it wakes you up and makes it harder to get to sleep. So alcohol is really difficult on sleep. It's not good. Caffeine, huge.
Not that we use that on the flight deck or cocktail.
Right, of course, yeah.
All-nighters, you're sitting there knocking coffee.
Yeah, it's the juice of the night crew, is caffeine. So that's a huge problem. Digital devices. Yeah, it's like, does the blue light affect the pineal gland? The pineal gland is what secretes melatonin. And I think there's probably something there, but the research is pretty iffy on what is the effect of blue light in terms of secretion of melatonin. And actually taking melatonin is bad for you. It's not, if you look at the science on melatonin, it's adding melatonin actually can make sleep worse. And it's this commonly like, oh yeah, take melatonin. And when you buy melatonin, because it's not FDA regulated, you don't know how much melatonin you're actually getting in that supplement. And they've looked in labs, they've taken like pill to pill. It can be like a 400% increase to a 400% decrease in melatonin from pill to pill. So you might think you're taking 2 milligrams, but you might actually be getting 8. So it's really, there's some more reputable supplement companies out there to get your melatonin, but going to Rite Aid and buying your melatonin is like, you're getting crap. It's not good. It's cheap, poor melatonin there's no standard to it. I think the science shows that you should not be using melatonin. We can talk about Ambien, and those are called hypnotic drugs. I'll get to that in a second. But so
just be aware though, self-medication is.
Oh yeah, and the FAA approves this shit, which is like the stupidest. It's like, if you know what those drugs do to your brain, and the FAA, I cannot understand why they approve that, but then they don't approve something like trazodone, which is an old school antidepressant medication. I mean, Ambien knocks, all it does, there's mortality associated with taking Ambien and Lunesta and those hypnotic type drugs. It's really bad for you, and they're highly addictive, and there's a lot of dependency that can happen on it. And so I'm not trying to scare you guys that are listening, because I know you're taking Ambien. Ambien, it's fake sleep. What it does is it knocks your brain offline so that you don't remember anything. But you're not actually getting sleep. You're not getting good sleep. You're not getting into those deep waves of restorative sleep. It's fake. It just knocks you offline so you don't remember anything. That's why, if you've been on enough long haul flights, sometimes people will get up and start walking down the aisle in their underwear. Business guys are in first class because they popped Ambien and they don't know where they are. And we've had flight crew have issues with that, where they'll take Ambien and then they're just wandering around with no clothes on, out in the cabin. And it's a big deal. Now, they're not supposed to be taking that stuff. There's a big window the FAA requires, but come on, give me a break. Do you really think it's absurd? They're taking Ambien because they can't sleep. Like, they have a sleep disorder, period. You got to be really careful with that shit. And any physician that's like, yeah, Ambien's fine, and I wouldn't trust. I would go to a sleep doctor and get their weigh in on this stuff. Somebody that knows what they're doing. So having a digital sunset devices, again, it's not necessarily the blue light that creates the problem, but it's the stimulation that creates the problem. If you're stimulating yourself with electronic devices, information, it's very hard to kind of slow things down enough for you to be able to get some rest. So having a digital sunset is really important. Turn off the devices. Turn them off. Curfews for alcohol, for caffeine, for eating. Eating is a big issue. If you eat too close to bed, your body has to create a lot more energy to start to work to digest the food. So like when I eat too close, my heart rate's too elevated. And I've got to slow my heart rate down, and I've got to drop my body temperature to be able to actually get into sleep waves. And so if you eat too close to bedtime, it's like getting a workout, essentially.
It's like dumping fuel into, like coal into the furnace.
You're just
going to heat up,
putting right in there. So having some curfews on when you drink, when you eat, caffeine, super important. And caffeine, I'll tell you, like, I can tell you this, it's the way we metabolize caffeine. It is not like a few hours. It's like 12 hours. I mean, you can have a caffeinated beverage, and don't quote me on this. I can go get the stats and we'll look at it, but you can have a caffeine, cup of coffee at 8:00 in the morning, and you're still metabolizing it significantly at 8:00 that night. So for me, I do not drink caffeine after 11 a.m. period. I just don't. I switch to decaf. And there's actually some good benefits of decaf coffee. There's some, antioxidants and other things in there that they're discovering is actually pretty good for you. And coffee is actually good for you. There's really good benefits of coffee, but sodas, teas, sugar, that kind of stuff. Don't do it after noon if you're going to try to go to bed at 10 o'clock. So that's some curfews. You got to, and even on the road, you can still have these curfews. Just try to maintain your time, your home base time as best you can. And there's lots of theories on how to do this. Some long haul, pilots that go out, I treat a lot of people that go out for 17, 18 days. And their philosophy is I just sleep when I'm tired. I eat when I'm hungry. I eat when I'm hungry. I exercise when I want to. They don't really keep a schedule, and those guys age faster than anybody. So we won't, I don't think we have time to really get into all that today, but make your room a sanctuary. That's really key. Whether it's your hotel room or it's your bunk, if you can, or it's your room at home, but you want to make your room a sanctuary. So what are the ways that we can increase sleep is get rid of any light source as much as possible. I mean, I put black tape. I used to carry on the road. I would keep electrical tape with me, and I would just cut a little piece and I'd put it right over the fire smoke detector, because it's got the little green light. I would just put tape over any light source, the TV, all that stuff. Declutter, put all the crap on the nightstand, throw it all into a drawer. So you have a lot less clutter. Temperature, the colder you can get it, the better. Optimal sleep temperature is somewhere between 64 and 67 degrees. So get your room as cold as you possibly can is another thing. Use white noise. If you're easily distracted, use white noise, use earplugs. I've got Bose sleep buds that I just use it's actually the brown noise. If it's really bad, it's really loud, I'll just put those in. But you want to kill the light source. You want to get it really cold. Taking a hot shower before you sleep is helpful because it actually helps your body drop temperature faster. So you've got to drop temp in order to fall asleep. Your body actually has to cool. And so if you take a hot shower, it starts to stimulate some of the mechanisms in your body to cool things down a little bit quicker. So not a cold shower, a hot shower at night will actually make your body cool faster. I think, some of these like PM rituals are important. I mean, do you have a ritual before you try to sleep? Like, how do you do it at home? How'd you do it on the road? I know how I did it on the road. I would have a kind of a ritual of going to sleep.
For the last number of years of my flying were international, and it was almost always on the backside because we'd be going into the Asia, or pushing in 6-7 hours ahead into Europe. And one of the things that it was really, really important to me whenever possible was to try and get myself into the room, because one of our contract requirements was the room had blackout shades. So most of the hotel rooms we had that, but the key was to get in there before sunrise, because it seemed like as soon as your body just it says, oh, it's time to be awake.
Sees the sun.
If I could get in my bed and have the blackout shades, or have the shades there where it was dark. Didn't have to be black. It just had to be dark, at least. And black was just, as dark as possible was better. But I didn't see the sunrise, because as soon as that happened, going to sleep was so much harder and sometimes impossible. And that really set me up poorly for the return flight. So that was one of the things that I always said, tried to do whenever possible, is get myself in bed. It didn't always work, but then you just have to go in there, put it down, and then you have a longer period where, like you said, it quiet, put the buds in or whatever. And
use the sleep mask,
You have to start slowly. It's a longer time between laying down and going to sleep. But like you say, the key is get the room dark. Obviously during the day, it's going to be harder because you can hear noise outside and everything, but putting earbuds or plugs in your ear will help reduce that. And white noise is also, it was also very beneficial.
Yeah, you can get apps on your phone that can generate white noise. You can. Some people carry white noise generators with them.
I probably was on the other end of the spectrum when it came to self-medicating. I basically didn't take anything.
Yeah.
So I never had to worry about what you're saying about Ambien and stuff like that. And by the way,
I never took that stuff either, but
just to make sure clear for people here, this is not any medical advice that we're giving here.
No, you got to talk to your doctor, but you can educate you, and this is educating you. I'm not telling you to go on or off. Yeah, I'm not telling you to go on or off your meds, but I'm saying talk to your doctor about this. And Ambien is bad for you. There's lots of clinical evidence about that. There's lots of studies on that. What it does to you, that we know that. Its dependency properties, we know that. And if your doctor doesn't know that, get a new doctor.
Are there any OTC supplements that you think might have any value or not?
I think, again, I'm not a medical doctor. I'm not a pharmacist. I think the more you can create baseline, which is like get things off board, not on board, I think the better off you are. Your brain has a natural pharmacy. Your body has a natural pharmacy that's in some respects is better than any pharmacy that's outside of your body. It knows what to do. It's got huge intelligence on what to do. Your job is to try to create an opportunity for those natural rhythms and those things to happen. And correcting sleep is a very slow process. It takes months to years to correct it. And it's, do a little, a lot, don't do a lot, a little. You can correct it over time, but it's going to take a long time to correct it. And the more consistent you can be, and just accepting some nights are going to be good, some are going to be crappy, and you can't win them all, and that's okay. But you just want to be really, really consistent. And I will say this, and guys are going to probably get mad at me for this, but if you care about sleep, get the hell off the international stuff. It's just period. I mean, you're jacking your sleep rhythms up terribly. And if you have a propensity towards depression or towards anxiety or mental health problems, if you've suffered from them, you need to get off of that kind of flying, because the sleep is the foundation. They used to think it was sleep, food, exercise are the three pillars. It's actually not pillars. They're vertical. Sleep is the foundation. It's the foundation. It's more important than exercise. It's more important than food. It's sleep. Because if you don't sleep, it creates disorders of every kind. So you got to have a really long, hard look at how you're doing. And some people can just kind of manage it. They're good with it. They know how to, they can figure it out. They don't have the issues, whether it's just, just genetic, it's just luck, whatever. But if you have issues, and when people come to LiftAffect and they've had some serious, disruptions, and it's like, they're like, okay, I'm going to go back into that flying. It's kind of like, I'll see you soon. See you again. Because if you always do what you've always done, then you kind of always get what you always got. And jacking your sleep up there's only so much you can do to fix that if you don't have the opportunity to have consistent sleep.
There are usually three prime drivers it'll get back to sleep in a second. There's three prime drivers, I believe, that people want to fly international, at least for most of the majors. And that is, it pays back. It's a higher pay rate. It's the wide body flying. You want to fly the big
right ego
metal.
Right.
And the third one is, a lot of times you want to go see things and go places.
Right.
In this case, you want to go to London. You want to go to China, want to Beijing, wherever. That's
fun for the first couple months.
But what I've found is the best way to, yes, that's a true statement. Sorry. slow to comprehend what you were saying there. This is one of my quicker days too. Is that one of the things that benefits you the most is actually one of the things that people are willing to do the least, and that is to stay on your home base sleep cycle, which means sleeping during the day. So if you're going because you want to go see London, if you're
staying up, you're basically staying up all night.
Yeah, you are. To minimize sleep disruption, you're going to be sleeping during. So you're really not going to be going anywhere and doing hardly anything. But that allows you to stay the closest to your to your normal sleep
But you
cycle.
get to fly that big airplane over a wide body of water.
Well,
You know,
the other thing I didn't mention also is for most people is it's also you're able to get doing more of your flying in fewer days.
it's
So
true. You
more
get
time
way more.
home.
I totally
So,
get it. And I'm kind of being,
yeah.
I'm
No,
being
but
I'm saying it in jest a little bit. But
there is
seriously
a
though,
trade-off. There really is. And you have to be willing to accept the fact is that if you're domestic, most of the time you can kind of stay on your normal cycle and do a lot of things and go see things because you're not really adjusting your sleep, your daytime, nighttime by more than a couple hours.
I used to take these
International's
guys.
a lot.
We take these guys, from like Aspen to LA. These pilots, a lot of them lived in Aspen. They flew the big, American guys. They're Delta pilots, and we would take them to drop them off when they were going to start their trip, and then like 6 or 7 days later, we'd pick them back up, and they'd be on our flight, and we'd fly them back home, and they had aged 30 years in 7 days. And then they would go home for like 7 days, whatever, and just try to recuperate. It's like being a professional athlete, but it was like they looked 30 years older in the course of 7 days because they'd just be like, oh man, how many days till I retire? I just got one more year of this, one more year of this. And like, I get it. You get more money, but it's not going to help you when you're dead. I mean, who cares? If you want to go see London, here's an idea. Take a vacation. Crazy, right? Because look, when you've been there 30 times, you're like, oh my God. You might as well be in Bismarck. I mean, it doesn't matter. So I'm here to safeguard your mental health and your physical health. That's my role. I'm not here to stroke your ego about being a big wide body captain or whatever. That's all cool. I get it. It's fine. But my job is to protect your health. And so I see what sleep disruption does to people. It's devastating. And sometimes it's deadly.
And the FAA acknowledges that with the, fatigue.
117. And it was good. Some people hated it because they made less money because of it. But arguably it put more control in the pilot's hands of saying, I'm not fit, I'm not able. And don't even get me started on the safety implications of being impaired. I mean, do you want to go fly drunk? Well, that's what flying sleep deprived is. It's flying impaired.
I think we'll save that one for another day.
I just opened it. So
I closed it.
No. But here's the thing. I mean, like, try to make the connection about how you feel with different hours of sleep, with 9, with 7, with less than 5. Just right. If you make a connection about how you feel, it's easier to start to implement some of the changes. Knowing the purpose, knowing what's the purpose of sleep? Why do we sleep? If you start to read a little bit, educate yourself, you'll be like, oh my gosh, I got to make sleep a bigger priority in my life. It's really important. So
another thing I would say that, and we didn't really touch on this aspect at all, and that is, what are some of the other things that could cause the inability or the difficulty in getting to sleep? And that's stress. Having having so many different things with at home, with money, with a side business, with a hobby, with a whatever it may be. Stress is a huge one. And I'm going to summarize it this way. And I thought about it while we were talking. When I was flying, if the airplane went out of control, there used to be a saying, unload for control.
Mm-hmm.
And the way I'm saying it here is find a way to, sometimes maybe, trying to start the business because you want to do stuff. Sometimes you need to kind of let it lay.
Yep.
Unload, take some of that off you so you can lower that stress level, because you may find out that that's may be all it needs to happen for you to have get some good sleep. So you start thinking better, you're healthier, you have more energy. It's amazing. I just feel like stress is a huge one that can impact people, and it's kind of hidden, and they don't even think about it. Just go, I'm just not sleeping well, not realizing that could be part of it also.
Well, the problem too is when you don't get good sleep, you start to get anxious and depressed. And the more anxious and depressed you get, the harder it is to get good sleep. And so it just becomes this vicious cycle that starts to feed on itself. It's like the turbine engine. You light it up, you can't turn it off until you start to disrupt the fuel source. So the fuel sources for bad sleep is not understanding the purpose of sleep. You got to have the rationale, the technology, whether it's bright lights, blue lights, maybe, but I think it's more the stimulation of those devices that emit that light frequency spectrum start to rev you up. Caffeine, alcohol, smoking, big meals, exercising too late, inconsistency, having huge inconsistencies with sleep creates sleep disorders. And I think most important, though, is just not valuing the importance of sleep. When you start to value it, you will start to make some corrections because it becomes important to you. It becomes a priority. And it can be corrected. It can be corrected. And look, if you have a night it's bad sleep, don't worry about it. I mean, don't get, oh my God, I didn't sleep. This is the worst thing in the world. And that's what happens sometimes when things start to go off the rails, is we become like almost obsessed about not being able to sleep. And the number one way you can not sleep is to be worrying about whether you're going to not sleep. So you've got to just set your environment up and yourself for the best chance, and then just let it go. Learn to meditate, learn some psychological flexibility skills to get around that, the demon of sleep that can happen.
I would say that of the things you talked about that could cause this disruption in sleep, that, we were talking about it as if they were each individual solo effects. So many of those things, if you were to talk to a lot of people, they go, well, I don't have just one of those. I have like 3 or 4 of them.
Yeah, of course.
And what I would say is don't go whole hog and go, oh God, I'm going to reduce everything.
No, start with one.
Start with one, because if you do, that'd be even worse, because you're going to feel even more miserable.
Right. Well, look, the curfews are easy.
Yes, they are.
60 to 90 minutes before you sleep, do a digital sunset. Okay, I'm turning off my stuff. I'm turning off no computers, and I'm going to read a book, not a Kindle, just a good old fashioned paper book, right? Remember how we used to do that? Kind of crazy. So 60 to 90 minutes, start the digital sunset. Caffeine, 5 to 8 hours. Alcohol.
I think that one can be tough for people, especially if they've had it for a long time. It's not easy.
You know what? But here's the deal. Just get decaf. It's the taste that people are chasing often. It's that habit of having coffee in your mouth. You can do it. Or go half decaf, half regular. Start to titrate the amount of caffeine down. That's a way to do it. Like taper. Alcohol, 3 hours minimum. Big meals, 3 hours. Don't work out 4 hours before you sleep. And this is all based on science. And, and here's another thing too. Don't have big, intense conversations, right before you go to sleep. That's dumb. Big decisions. My mom always say, don't make big decisions at night. And I think that's true. You don't want to rev yourself up, with big decisions. So there's just some quick tips, but I like the question. We can talk more about sleep. We can review some of the literature at some point and try to apply it to our operation, of flying. But I think those are this is what we advise people with sleep disorders and depression and anxiety at LiftAffect. And if it can work for that, it can work for you.
Well, the plan was for this just to be a question, but it's such a broad.
There's never just a question.
I know that, and then keeping you from getting down deep into that rabbit hole is a challenge. But the thing is, this one's a big one because it affects so many. And I don't know that they've ever done a scientific study on retired pilots. In other words, there is a study, but I don't know if it was done.
It's grim.
Well, the thing is, what you were talking about, the international versus domestic.
Yes.
I've always wondered what kind of a study, because it seems like so many of the people that I know, they retire and then within a few years they're gone.
Yep.
And that's well below the national life expectancy.
Yeah, I think there is some. We can look into that.
That's something, so
anecdotally,
this is something that people need to take seriously. You don't, I think we've talked about it. You don't live to work. You should work to live.
Yeah.
I mean, this whole is all of this is, it's great to fly, and it's, the pay and the benefits, not what they once were, but they're decent enough. But the whole goal is to be able to enjoy all those things once you reach the time to retire. So take care of yourself,
Yeah.
eat healthier, keep yourself fit, and make sure you keep your body and mind rejuvenated, and that takes sleep.
Yes. Couldn't have said it better.
So, any last thoughts on this? Or
No, I think appreciate the questions. Such insight. I mean, the reason we rabbit hole on this, and there's so much to talk about, because you all are asking really good questions, and keep the questions coming. LiftAffect podcast at LiftAffect.com.
You're trying to make me redundant. I see how this is.
Yeah. AI. We're going to AI you out.
Yes.
We'll get a bot. We'll get a bot to ask the questions.
Yeah. Well, I might be closer to the bot. The AI actually, you would think would be a very comprehensive response. Right. You're going to get a huh?
Yeah. Like single pilot. Yeah. Okay. I'm not even going to go there. Okay. Anyways, well, let's not talk about that.
Yeah. No. That is a rabbit hole. I'm not letting you go down.
We won't go there.
So, once again, thank you to all of our listeners for tuning into us. And as Matt said, sending in these questions, because we have a kind of an agenda of what things we would talk about, but we'll always want to answer those questions first, because in some cases they're as important, if not more so, because that's what's on your mind. So please keep them coming. Podcast at LiftAffect.com. And we look forward to seeing you on our next podcast. Please give us a like, a thumbs up, share it with your friends. Until next time, thank you for listening in, and have a great day.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the LiftAffect podcast. If you want to dive deeper into this episode and every episode, go to our website, liftaffect.com/podcast. If you're enjoying the show, we would love it if you'd follow us on Spotify and rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts. We really appreciate your support. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, all with the ID Matthew McNeil. This show is brought to you by LiftAffect, a clinical mental health and consulting company that assists air carriers, corporate flight departments, pilot unions, and commercial pilots by providing comprehensive psychotherapy and mental skills coaching services to pilots with mental health and mental performance-related issues. Visit liftaffect.com, that's LiftAffect.com, to book your free consultation. And finally, this podcast is for general informational purposes only. It does not constitute the practice of counseling, psychotherapy, medicine, or any other healthcare service, including the giving of medical advice. No therapeutic or provider-patient relationship is formed. The use of this information and any materials linked to this podcast is at the user's own risk. The content of this podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional psychological advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Users should not disregard or delay in obtaining advice for any psychological or medical condition they have, and they should seek the assistance of their healthcare professionals for any such conditions. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on the LiftAffect podcast.